Hello, hello. Welcome to the Listen for Life Aphasia podcast. Tonight, we are talking more about right hemisphere. And even though this applies to more than just right hemisphere, or it can, I think there's going to be some good takeaway lessons in tonight's episode. For a moment, everything felt normal. The conversation was flowing, the food was great, and I almost forgot about the stroke. Then I looked at his plate. His chicken was gone, his vegetables were gone, but the mashed potatoes on the left side, untouched. I sighed. I told him before that he tends to ignore the left side and that he has something called left neglect. The doctors have explained it too, but every time he says, "No, I don't. I see just fine." I feel like I'm talking to a wall. I see the struggle, but he doesn't. And I wonder, how do you help someone who doesn't even realize they need help? What if your loved one couldn't recognize their own struggles? No matter how much you explain, they don't see it. It's frustrating to live with, but it's not denial. Today, we're breaking down why this happens and how to help. Welcome to the Listen for Life Aphasia podcast, where we explore real stories, expert insights, and practical strategies for navigating life after stroke and aphasia. I'm Genevieve, and today we are diving into one of the most frustrating challenges for care partners when a stroke survivor doesn't recognize their own difficulties. Right hemisphere strokes can affect self awareness, making it hard for survivors to recognize their deficits. This is called, here's the big word, anosognosia. And for care partners, it can feel like denial, stubbornness, or even resistance to the help that they are offering. So today we're going to cover why right hemisphere stroke can affect awareness, the difference between denial and anosognosia, practical small strategies to gently encourage awareness, and where care partners can get support. So let's dive into it. So, the key message I want you to get is it's not denial, it's not stubbornness. Even if their personality was such before that they had those traits, yes, sometimes a stroke can exacerbate the good traits and the more challenging traits to deal with, but often it's brain damage. The right hemisphere plays a major role in self awareness, which by definition is understanding one's own abilities and limitations. So let's take this from a practical point of view. Let's say you, the care partner, maybe younger in your years, and you were physically active and you were really good at, I don't know, I'm going to pick an extreme example, pole vaulting. I don't know why that popped in my head right now, but you were really good at pole vaulting. Well, you knew what your body could and could not do, but someone who wasn't proficient at pole vaulting, they may have no idea. They may not have self awareness about what their body is doing as they are running and sticking that pole in and then flying over. So, self awareness is understanding one's own abilities and limitations. Body perception is another. Recognizing weaknesses or neglect on the left side. So, again, someone who has had a stroke that affects the right side of their brain, the opposite side of the body can be impacted. And you can also have what's called left neglect. And we're going to get into that in a bit. Judgment and reasoning, knowing when they can't do something and asking for help or allowing somebody else to help. So, all of these things together, self awareness, body perception, judgment, and reasoning, all of those make for a really challenging living situation where you, the care partner, may be seeing safety risks or you're perceiving what they're doing as stubbornness. And that's really challenging. So when this part of the brain is damaged, the person may think they are more capable than what they are. They may think they can still go pole vaulting if that was something they were recently doing, right? They may not notice or believe their impairments exist. The craziest thing, I shouldn't say crazy, the most interesting thing I've seen in my career in rehab is when the left side of the body is completely paralyzed and they have no idea that it's paralyzed. They look down and see that hand or arm laying in their lap and they think it's somebody else's. They're completely detached from that. They have no idea that that is their arm. Remember, if you listen to the last couple of episodes, we talked about strategies, and we'll do a little more of that in a couple of minutes here. But often it's about gently educating them and providing a mirror for them so that they can start reconciling what they are perceiving and what is reality. So, the key takeaway here is for care partners, this can be really frustrating and overwhelming, but there are ways to encourage awareness without confrontation. You don't want to be getting up in their face and accusing them of something and they have absolutely no awareness, because what that can do is damage your relationship. So that's why we do these episodes, to provide education, to provide examples, to help you avoid some of these pitfalls that can crop up after a stroke. Because when you don't understand how the stroke is impacting that person, it can damage your relationship. And once you damage that relationship over time, that gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's so much more difficult to overcome. So, we are here to educate and help you understand that some of this is just part of the stroke. It's not to be taken personally. So let's talk about some small yet subtle strategies that can help encourage awareness in your person who's had the stroke. Let them experience the deficit instead of just hearing about it. I'm going to say this is a tightrope walk, because part of it is you want them to have what I called, when my kids were little, natural consequence. They leave to go to Disneyland wearing flip-flops. It's highly likely their feet are going to be exhausted and they're going to have blisters from walking in their flip-flops. That's called a natural consequence. You don't intervene, right? They can live with some blisters. But your person who's had a stroke, a natural consequence can be far more, have far more consequence, meaning they could fall. They could fall and break a hip. They can fall and hurt a shoulder. They could hit their head again, right? So there is a fine line, that tightrope. So let's talk about going back to my example that we opened with. Remember how I said the gentleman ate his vegetables and his chicken, but he didn't touch his mashed potatoes. So left neglect. And if I didn't witness it myself, it sounds like, oh, that can't be possible. Think of your plate, your 8-inch plate, right? It's down in front of you. And it's as if that plate has a line right through the middle. Think of the middle of that plate as the middle of their body. They may not see this left side of the plate at all. And they may think they ate all their dinner and they may be asking for seconds because they're like, hey, you gypped me on the potatoes. Where'd the potatoes go? So, one of the strategies is you have to turn that plate. And now maybe that mashed potatoes is at the top. So half is to the left, half is to the right. And you've got to get them to move their eating utensil more towards crossing that midline to get to that left side of the plate to start seeing it. You may need to ask permission of them to move their head, because often that left neglect, it's the left side of the eyes. I'm painting with a broad brush here, so don't quote me on this because it's different for everybody. The left side of the eye, they just don't see it. But with shifting their head, they can now use the right side of both eyes to see what's happening over here. That is not a natural thing for them to do. They have to be educated and trained how to do that. So if the person is only eating food on the right side of the plate, instead of pointing it out or criticizing or saying, I told you this, why don't you get it? Rotate the plate so they see that the uneaten food moves to the right. Get them to see it, get them to think through it. After they finish eating, ask, did you enjoy everything? What did you think about the potatoes? Remember, the potatoes are what they got last because they didn't see it on that other side. And if they didn't eat them, they may realize they never even saw them. So, why this strategy works, instead of being told they missed something, they get to experience it firsthand. So before we go on, we have a question or a comment from Melissa. Melissa is saying, I keep telling my husband he's ignoring the left side, but he swears he sees everything just fine. This must be an example of what you're talking about. That's exactly right, Melissa. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Couple of other things. Think about, so let's say your person does have left neglect. Think about where they are sitting to eat. Let's say there's a window with a bird feeder near the kitchen table. Why don't you, hi dog, position them so that their left side is attracted to that bird feeder out the window? What you're trying to do is find natural ways to get them to turn towards the left. So just positioning at a table, putting their right side, if you don't have something really exciting on the left side to help them pay attention to that, put their right side against a wall, like literally, like put the chair next to the wall so like they feel crowded, because what you're trying to do is get them to shift past midline to look over towards the left hand side. The other thing, you, the spouse, care partner, sit on the left side. They're going to hear you talking to them. And there's a good chance you're going to get them to turn their head to look at you. If not, you say, honey, can you turn over here? Can you look at me, while we're chatting? If we're working on something like reading, we used to do this thing, drawing a big red line on the left side of the page. It's, just in the margin of the page to try and get them always to track back to that red line. Again, it's just purposeful training to do that. And then they, track left to right and then get back to that red line and track again. So another strategy, and we talked about this on a previous episode, use a mirror or video to show them. Don't tell them. None of us want to be nagged, even if it comes from the best of intentions. None of us want to be nagged. Show them what's happening. And it's going to take more than one time. It's not, it just takes time. There's just no way around it. So missing objects in a room, remote control, maybe they are TV motivated and they love to control that remote control. Well, put it on the left. And you know what? Tell them you're putting their iced coffee on the left and that they're going to have to reach over and show them, tap on that table, get them to reach, cross that midline to get to the left-hand side, to get to their beverage, to get to the remote control. Do whatever you can to strategize, set up the environment to help show them, set that example. So they need reading glasses to see, like they need their distance glasses on to see the menu on the TV. Put it on the left and say, honey, I'm just putting your glasses on the left. That's where they are. And then he says, where's my glasses? It's on the left. Well, where's that? Well, you can hold his hand and get him to cross left to find it. So instead of saying something like, don't you see them over there? They're over there. You just show, show as much as you can. And why this works, instead of just being told that they've missed something, they practice scanning on their own because that's the learning. That's what they need to go forward and be able to start seeing those things on the left without your intervention. So, another point, avoid direct confrontation. Ask questions instead. Example, if they don't react to a joke or an emotional moment, instead of saying, didn't you hear me? Or why didn't you laugh at that? You would normally laugh at that. Say, what do you think? Was it funny, right? And see how they react. See if they can explain it to you. Especially if it's like a comedian, maybe that they used to watch. Like I love to watch old George Carlin videos. I I never get sick of what he joked about. And if they have someone like that, it's well worth putting that on and seeing how they react to it and saying, "Hey, honey, you didn't laugh at that, and you would normally laugh at it. So what are you thinking?" See if you can get them to explain it to you so that you can understand a little bit of their thinking process, because that's what is so challenging after a stroke. Whether they've had a left hemisphere stroke or right hemisphere stroke, it doesn't matter. The point is, they are trying to figure out what's happening in their own brain. And the best way to figure that out is to ask them questions and wait for them to respond. And if not, ask a different question or ask it in a different way. So instead of assuming they don't care, this method helps to re engage, helps you to understand maybe a little bit more of what's going on in their brain, and it helps them to interpret their emotions more clearly. Another strategy, create safe challenges, but in a controlled setting. Now, this is an interesting one. One of my clients, he used as it was explained to me, remember I'm on telepractice, so I'm not in their houses, and it's whatever they show me, lifting up the laptop. But he would come from the bedrooms, go down a hallway, and then there's like a little half wall at the end. I mean, it goes up like this, but it's not a direct line to get to the living room. He would have to walk around this half wall. Well, he has difficulty on the left-hand side. And invariably, every day, day after day, he would always hit his shoulder on that wall. And we got to getting some of that painter's tape, the stuff that doesn't hurt walls, that blue painter's tape, and marking that off and training him, educating him that he needs to be able to see this tape and not run into the wall. Because part of why this is so important is when he's out in a parking lot, crossing a parking lot with his wife, coming out of Sam's Club, he's not perceiving dangers or cars coming or the curb or uneven pavement or whatever the case may be. So by training him inside the house, it helps transfer that skill, that scanning ability, and kind of learning new boundaries. Where is my body that I don't run into things? So we need to practice in a controlled, safe setting so that we can generalize it out into the environment. So, brightly colored objects, using the painter's tape, asking questions. Do you see the blue tape? And wait for an answer. And can you look to the left and tell me what you see over there? Or, whoa, look at those birds. And maybe he'll look left and tell you, oh, there's two male cardinals, whatever the case may be. So, why this works, it gives the survivor a safe space to practice scanning rather than just being told they're missing things, because that gets old really, really quickly. So, let's go to the comments. Jan, Jan is saying, my dad is convinced he can still drive, but he doesn't even notice when he bumps into things. It's scary. Absolutely, Jan. So that has to do with, right, lack of awareness. He obviously has some kind of a neglect, or maybe it's a visual field cut. This is where you have to have a diagnosis. Again, I'm painting with a broad brush. There could be lots of different reasons why they can't see, right? Sometimes it's an eyeball problem, sometimes it's a brain problem, sometimes it's an awareness problem. So thank you for your comment, Jan. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my team member, Autumn, who's helping us, put some of these major points into the chat. I hope you guys find this helpful, and we're going to keep on moving forward. So, where can you, the care partner, the spouse, the significant other, the adult child of the survivor, learn more? Where can you get support? There's a couple places. Well, there's more than a couple, but I'm going to give you three. The first one is the American Stroke Association, stroke.org. That's one place you can go to get some nice general stroke information. The next place you can go is Aphasia Recovery Connection. They focus a lot on aphasia and communication strategies, and it's just another nice environment to get yet a different perspective. And then, of course, Life Speech Pathology, where we offer specialized stroke rehab, and we have tons of resources to support you wherever you are in your stroke and aphasia journey. So we're going to wrap up today and say that right hemisphere strokes can impact self-awareness, making it hard for survivors to recognize their deficits. It's not necessarily, I'll say necessarily, a stubbornness or denial. It's a neurological change. It's a change in the brain. And that with the right strategies, care partners and survivors can work towards regaining that awareness and engage in their recovery to overcome these hurdles that have come along as a result of a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to leave you with a special message for care partners. If you are exhausted from doing this alone, if you feel like you just don't have the resources, in the show notes, I have a special opportunity for you. If you would like to take advantage or see what this opportunity is, please check the show notes. You'll punch in a keyword and we will send that resource directly to you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the audience and your participation, and we will see you next time. Oh, and next time, what's really cool is I travel tomorrow to the Aphasia Access Conference in Pittsburgh. It's the mecca of aphasia professionals, from speech pathologists like myself that work in the trenches, hospitals, private practice, whatever it is, and then the who's who of aphasia researchers. So I'm really excited to attend this conference. It was great 2 years ago, and looking forward to bringing to you new information in the world of aphasia to help you recover better. Have a good night.